Right, people, we're going to get the Q&A started. Thanks for hanging on. We're going to do our best to include everybody. And, of course, what's that? We've got a heckler already. No, it's recording, mate. It's no Kaz Milligan you're watching, bro. But, aye, and he helped me out there, by the way. So we've got mics, right? I've got my lovely assistant over there. She's got a mic for the audience members. So if you'd like to put up your hand and ask a question, we can pass the mic to you. We're going to be recording this, and it's just so when we're taking this to like maybe schools as such or whatever, they can give them an insight into audience feedback, and for us to promote it on social media as such. If you don't want your face featured, that's totally fine, but it'd be great if we could record your question at least. So at the very least, if we could record you asking a question, the audio. If you're really uncomfortable getting recorded whatsoever, that's totally fine. Don't let it stop you for asking a question. Just let us know beforehand. But I'll pass it over to Sean if he wants to open things up for us.
So obviously we've got like Annemarie, James and Tracy. So if anybody's got any questions at all, ask away. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've got a great panel here. Like so it's up to yourselves. Is there any takers for the first question? On you go, D.
I can pass the mic up to you.
All right, on you go, right.
Go on.
I would love to say I've never seen anything like that in my life. Totally shocking. I'm absolutely in total dismay as to what's going on out there. I know a lot of people who take drugs. I've never taken a drug myself. Well, I'm telling a lie there. I take alcohol and I've just started going to meetings. So I am an addict of sorts. Have to say, that lady on the end there, the bravery that you have, outstanding. And I'd love to applaud you, by the way. I really would. That takes a lot of strength. And yeah, I don't know you, but I love you already. I really do. I think that was very well put together, very well narrated, everything. And it struck home to me exactly. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, how bad this problem is. I was in prison a year ago, just over a year ago, and I've never, as I say, never taken this or that or that. I've always boxed. I'm a qualified boxing coach and played football. Always kept myself fit and everything. And it was they wanted to put me on that.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's nuts. And by the way, yourself, sir, 15 years.
Aye.
No, applaud you as well, by the way. I really do, honestly.
It was hard. Every moment was a struggle, honestly. It wasn't.
Young man like yourself too, eh?
Certainly wasn't.
Anyway, listen, do you know, tonight is an absolute eye-opener. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm looking forward to the next one, you know. And hopefully, for the grace of God in Scotland, something's changed about it, you know. I think these are all fantastic people. Recognise you all, right? And thanks for sharing, by the way, because it takes a lot to do that. And that's all I would like to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Did anybody get any feedback?
I just want to keep my son's memory alive, and I want to recognise his death for everyone out there that's still struggling. You know, I feel like when I first started doing this, when I did it, when Sean phoned me up, I was a bit shocked at first, and then I thought, well, why not? Because when Nathan died, I opened his funeral up to the media because he was only 20 and his drug use started at school. So for me, my heart would be wanting this to go into schools, to educate the kids. It's not the children that start going into high school, it's the peer pressure above them. And it's been 7 years of a journey, and in 4 years since he died. And for me, it's about keeping his name out there and to never be forgotten. So, thank you.
Hello there, my name's Laura and I'm from Coatbridge. My brother's name was Craig Whittle and he died in the jail, in Berlin jail in May 2005 on methadone. And it was a heroin epidemic back in the 90s and he had a bad drug problem. And he wasn't a bad guy, he was in Berlin jail for... He was a bit callous with the mouth, shoplifting like cheese, coffee, stupid things, not appearing at court for fines, and something happened to him. I don't know what happened to him. The police just tell lies. Apparently, well, he took a blood clot to the brain, and apparently it was through an aneurysm through jagging heroin, which he had for years and years. But something's triggered that off. I've heard stories like of his pals that were in the jail with him that had a bang at the head off the police through getting hit with a baseball bat. I've heard that he's fell off the top bunk and banged his head. I've heard that he get handcuffed to a radiator and battered. I don't really know, to be honest, but it's been an eye opener, and I'm going to get his death certificate. I'm going to do something about it. I need to do something. I'm feeling really, really quite angry now, to be honest. But there's like people, like my big brother's dead. It was just a number in there. I actually feel sick to the stomach. I didn't know what to expect tonight. That horrible word junkie as well. It's
Just wanted to say, do you want me to take it? My question is, after I said that, what inspired you to do it, and I like the fact that bringing up trauma, because being in many services, I do know some of the panels, so it's kind of thing me, but being in services my whole life and having the big voice and stuff, like nobody took my trauma seriously. And every time I went to addiction services, they tried to cure the addiction, but didn't recognise my trauma. And every time I went to trauma services, didn't do my addiction, and because I was good at masking and I was quite violent when I was younger because of all the trauma. So it's just where he's taking it and what inspired you to do it. So where he's got to try and take it to, and what inspires you to do it as well. And I like the fact that I know that trauma and addiction aren't the twins, but they're definitely sisters, and I like the fact that that's been echoed a bit more now than it used to be.
I went into therapy at 27 and was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. And for the first time in my life, I was able to, because I believe everybody knows what's wrong with them. They've just not heard themselves saying it yet, or they've not heard somebody else describe it. Because like, trauma's describes something, but it doesn't explain it. And people need a sufficient explanation. It helps them make sense of why their life's the way it is, so they can give themselves Big Eddie says it in you can't apply a solution to a problem you don't understand. And for the first time in my life, I'm 27, and I've been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. So a big part of what drove my work is my lived experience. Anybody that tells you their own lived experience doesn't drive their work, it's talking pish, as far as I'm concerned. Because everybody brings their whole self to the work, but not everybody's aware of their own bias, their own prejudice, and how emotion shows up in their work. And fundamentally what drives my work is I care about people. And I became a part of the ACEs movement in Scotland, and the trauma-informed movement in Scotland wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the ACEs movement. So I became an activist in that, because people still weren't aware of the trauma that's in our culture. So they look at an addict and say he's making bad choices. But if you strip it by the substance, did they choose the poverty? Did you choose the trauma? Did they choose to be sexually abused? And when you start to frame it like that, you're like, these are people in pain who, like me, unwittingly discovered a substance. So I never, there was no educational programmes when I went to school, and by the time they showed up in high school, I was already self-medicating, and I was self-medicating with a drug called cannabis, and I didn't know cannabis was an analgesic. It's got painkiller properties. I didn't know that I was in pain. I had no idea. how you meant to know you're traumatised because you've never known is an unpredictable, hostile environment. I've nothing to reference it against. So folk come into recovery, I meet all the time, my heart burns for the addict, right? They come into recovery and they've no internal frame of reference for what life was. So some people come in and say, I need to get my life back because they've got a reference for what a life is, free of substances. Some people coming in going, what is a life? It's alien to them. And I was one of the boys until I got a proper diagnosis. But not just that, the support network that I was able to access was enabled me to work out my wounds and fix stuff while I was moving. Because I never had a 2-year-old on my shoulders going to meetings, feeling as if I shouldn't have been here. I've got this wee bit of lassie and I'm bringing her into meetings. And that's why I said in the documentary that I've never heard anybody in the methadone clinic saying that when they came to the methadone clinic, their Wayne stopped peeing the bed and their schooling got better. But I've heard that in meetings of recovery. The first place I ever heard it was a meeting of recovery because I was a wee boy that wet the bed up until I was 16. And I didn't know it was connected to trauma. It was a trauma response. So the trauma work is still massively misunderstood. But it also needs to recognise that addiction isn't defined by trauma. It's a primary condition in its own right that needs addressed. And then you can look at the trauma. Do you know what I'm talking about? So it's recognising that it's either an illness or it's not an illness. I listen to people all the time saying, as if, I'm sorry for going on, right, but they go on about treatment models, right? Now imagine you had cancer and you don't know what type of cancer you've got, and you go to the doctor and the doctor's saying, I don't know, well, he's not chosen the chemo for it. The choice needs to cut, he's got to want it. Imagine you heard that for a cancer, a type, or any other schizophrenia. Imagine you heard it for schizophrenia. He's not getting that model of recovery because he needs to choose it. Do you know what I'm talking about? And that's the thing about, I've got no idea what the illness of addiction is. So I'm the last person to find out that I've got it. But what happens is, somebody else in recovery explains something to me that I'd been trying to work out for well over a decade. And he framed it like this. This is what he says. See me go to the petrol station and you put the petrol nozzle in the tank and it clicks when the tank's full because it's got a built-in safety mechanism to stop petrol spilling it onto the forecourt. And I'm sitting going, what's he going with this, right? And he goes, I've not got a fucking clicker. I don't know when my tank's full. That's the physical aspect of the illness of addiction. There's a physical component to it that when I take one, my body craves another one and I don't know when my tank's full. So you don't stop at the, there's a guy up there as a drinker. You ever drank one of anything in your life? There you go, right? So when I say to you the clicker thing, you've not got a clicker, you don't know when your tank's full, does it make sense?
I got to a point where I could buy 8 cans of lager. See one can in. I was already wondering, am I buying another 8?
Yeah, yep. No, there's
So
no other
I'm
way
in total
to
agreement
account
with you,
for
buddy.
that.
Total agreement.
So there's no other way to account for that, but here's what I started out with, and this is the point I'm trying to make. I'm in contact with every system that can get a hold of me for the children's care, for the social work, children and families social work, right? All the way through children's panel system, care system, young offender system, adult prison system, and a guy probably, I think he was on PIP, high rate PIP, told me what was the matter with me. So what's going on with all these professionals that they're no armed with that information, that a guy can explain a whole gestalt with the analogy of a clicker saying, and I turned to the person next to me and went, I've got it. That's what's up with me. And I realised that I can't take one of anything. It was the first drug that was doing it to me.
It goes on for ages though, before you realise or recognise
Yeah.
you've got a problem. And sadly, you're the last one to know it.
100%.
Other people notice it. Everybody will notice it, and anybody that cares about you will take time and say, John, there's a difference in you. What's the difference?
And that's why I say a proper diagnosis is a liberation rather than a limitation. It'll liberate you, it frees you. It goes, I know what's the matter with me now. And you'll entertain the solution. And if you don't understand the problem, Eddie's right, you will only see your need to access the solution. And a big problem with the system is they don't understand the problem. They just don't understand. And it's not their fault. Or maybe they refuse to understand it. Maybe that's why they resist activists like Annemarie. I don't know where she gets her energy, I honestly don't. But if I had a lever to pull, and if there was anybody running the recovery system in Scotland, it would be her. Because there's very few things that she says that I disagree with, because it ties in with the evidence base. It's not just anecdotal. I mean, I'm 15 years clean and sober, and I've sat in rooms and listened to thousands of hours of people's story. Tell me that's not research. Tell me that's not research. Thousands of hours of people's experience, and when you listen to people, you learn stuff. And it's not because I've studied addiction or studied recovery, it's because I've listened to people's lived experience. And it's taught me everything that I need to know in order to maintain what I've got, and why my 3 children have never... My life's been like a social experiment. It's like everything I experienced young, I've worked out so my veins. It stops here. You know that saying that runs in the family? It ran the fuck out here. It ran out. And that's what recovery can do for people. It's not just anecdotal, one person. I've had to bring my 3 veins in here. Like, I'll finish this, my partner kidded on to my daughter the other day, my partner's in recovery, that they were on a plane coming back for holiday, and she went, oh, wouldn't mind a wee Prosecco. My wee lassie's 11, she went, I'll tell your sponsor. and she went, you shouldn't be thinking that, Mum. But that's the beauty of recovery, innit? They'll just challenge.
Do you know something? I'm at the very start of this, right? But I know I've decided already, enough's enough. I know why, as you say, and rightly so, sir. I know now why. But back then, I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, and it was alcohol. I'm going to say only alcohol. That'll decimate anybody's life, okay? And it really is, by the way, you know. And people class these and that. I couldn't even spell some of the things that were on that TV tonight. But I know they're harmful for you. And all mixed together are deadly. And it is what sadly, it is what it bloody is. And honestly, I'd absolutely commend everybody sitting down there tonight. I just get fed up with myself in the mirror. I gave myself a telling off with a cup of coffee. I'm telling you I did. And I'm pointing to myself. I said, sounds crazy. I don't even like you. I fell out with a can of lager. I had 1 can of lager in my fridge, right? And I was looking at it day after day, after day, after day. But every time I looked at it, I went, not talking to you anymore. And I reached for the milk. Made myself a coffee. Yeah. That's how I started.
The 1 can you had in the fridge?
I only ever kept 1,
That's
by
how
the way.
you fell out of it, 'cause
No.
one isn't enough.
I was still buying 4 a day, don't be wrong, right? But that one I kept for moan, you know. And I just looked at it and I thought, but instead of going to a shop at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, for the shop opening, it was like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then coaching the boys at the back with the boxing. And I spent time doing all that, and I thought, no, I don't want this anymore. I just don't want it.
Good.
So, and I've been working on myself now, Laura, about 8 weeks. 8 weeks, and I plucked up the courage. If you'd have seen me last Friday night, guys, right? I was as white as a sheep, and I was ready to walk out. I boxed for years in Coatbridge, and I was ready to walk out that door because I basically shot myself. Excuse me, right? But I did, and I thought I can't do this. and I don't know how to do it because it's unknown waters.
Yeah.
I just
yeah.
didn't know how to do it. But I tell you what, that was an eye-opener.
Good,
And
mate.
people's stories, life stories like
Yeah.
yourselves, your good selves, all right? Wow. And you think it's just you. And you
Aye.
think, you know, oh, it's just me, my life's terrible and all that. It's not. Everybody's got a bit of something.
Yeah.
And the more people shared the other evening, I'm going back to a meeting tomorrow night, God spares me. One on Friday, one on Saturday, I
Keep going,
believe,
mate.
and Sunday. So I'm just going to keep at this, right? And thank goodness I've not been through the trauma that you guys have went through. Because in every individual way, you've been through far more trauma than I think I could ever live in 3 lifetimes. Or 5 lifetimes. Right there. So I apologies, guys. I really do. And I wish everyone is all the best. I really do.
Not only did I have Nathan, I have another son, and he was addicted to alcohol and was in and out the hospital and that, and I nearly lost him too. He wanted out of the trauma, whereas Nathan didn't really. He was having the time of his life in there. He was sad and he was down and he was depressed, but that was all the life that he wanted. But my other son, he fought to come right back, and he went through rehab and everything. That's his story to tell. But he's 5.5 years sober now, and he's at university. He's in his last year, doing psychology and philosophy. So we're not all a very sad family. You know, we've came through it all together, and we're a lot closer in the family as well because of what we've been through. So, good luck to you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy. Good stuff.
Take it away.
Thank you, and good luck in your recovery. Keep your seat. I know, no, but you're very privileged to have found recovery. Most people don't who suffer from this condition. You probably still are. Just keep coming to meetings. I just want to say thanks to the boys because I got a sense the first time I watched the film that I had passed the baton to a new generation of activists, and my God, you know, I got that sense very strongly tonight as well, and not only like people like James and I who have sort of felt have done a lot of, I don't know, banging our heads against a brick wall. You guys have certainly condensed our message in such a powerful, dramatic, and even beautiful way. The first time I watched it, I was very, just struck by the emotion within it. But tonight I saw a lot of beauty, or the sort of the filmatic stuff, the drone shots and showing Glasgow in a really beautiful light as well. I hadn't quite caught that contrast the first time I watched it. And at the break, I was speaking to a young woman who's a teacher, and like the Kevin McKenna article, so the Herald, one of the journalists came to the first screening and he wrote it up and he said it should be in every school in Scotland, which was the sentiment the young lady in the queue at the tea said as well. And she was suggesting, what age group would they be suitable for? And I'd like to hear other people's thoughts about it actually. And, I just get a real sense that some of our work is done and that you guys are going to take it forward and other people will take it forward in a much more powerful way.
Thank you, Annemarie. Thanks very much. Is anybody else got any questions?
I'm not going to say it was a fun documentary because it was pretty harrowing at times. But like Annemarie said, it was very beautiful at times as well. So I'm guessing there was something that gave you a spark to want to make this documentary. And I would be interested to know what was that kind of turning point for you guys to do that. And also have a follow-up for Annemarie, if that's okay as well. You mentioned in the documentary that if you're a cat or dog charity, they're easy to make money. How do you change that culture, or what's the way of making that happen? What's that kind of process going to look like over the years, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know is the real answer. I need help, or we need help. We have a wee charity. It's called Faces and Voices of Recovery UK, where a wee charity with a big voice. And I don't know, we just need help, guys. I think, like you spoke about at the beginning, Jordan, there isn't a family that's not affected by this in Scotland in one way or another. And I think that stigma and that hunger or that desperation for change, I'm kind of hoping we're at a rock bottom, and I'm also hoping that maybe a change of government in 2026 will shift this some way. And I've got some sort of backdoor handshake promises from other parties that will happen. But, you know, politicians and promises. We'll see. But yeah, I think I don't know is the answer, and we need help. And if anybody wants to help, please get in touch.
So I'll kind of start off. So myself and Jordan obviously like do podcasts and stuff. And when I got out of prison after doing a long time, I was in a mess. And listen, I'm still in a mess, right? I'm not trying to say I'm no, do you know what I mean? I've still got mega demons in my life, but I've came a long way from where I was, and that was due to a support network that I had, and I had a fantastic family around about my friends and that were always willing to be there. But what I kind of seen was like a podcast system and stuff that was kind of glamorising crime, and I can tell you in the 15 years I was in prison, there's nothing glamorous about it at all, man. Like nothing. Like your biggest gangsters with the millions of pounds still greeting behind their door at night. Some of them turn to drugs, some of them turn to addiction. It really is a horrible, horrible place. So 15 years of that, I kind of wanted to make a wee bit of change. So I said, I'm going to make a podcast that's different. It shows a different side to it. It shows a kind of human side. Shows the kind of the people that work, the Annemarie, the work, James, the work, Tracy, everybody. Like, and obviously that took me into meeting Jordan, and both of us just kind of went, look, we've got a lot of contacts here, do you know what I mean? Like, we could make something powerful. Obviously, Jordan's amazing at editing, and his work's really, really good. And so we got down to kind of who would be good on it, and we just kind of fell together. I mean, it was a film with a budget, do you know what I mean? It was like, well, it was a lot of time and effort, but there was no money. Like, none of these people took a pound. Like, there was nothing. So it's a powerful film all ways round, do you know what I mean? So it was kind of just for that. Like, I mean, I was in the prison system. I would go further with Natalie, which is the high 90%, I would say, are taking drugs. I would say probably could be more. Do you know what I mean? There's, but again, your statistics can be manipulated. But I'll let Jordan kind of tell you his side as well.
Thanks very much, and I appreciate the wee compliment in there. That was always good to get, man. But
always get it off me, Fivo.
I like that, mate. I like that. It's both ways. So for me, of course, I'm in recovery myself, and I've always had this kind of awareness, right? And there's that old kind of saying that it's easier to get a pizza in Scotland than it is to... No, it's easier to get a gram in Scotland than it is to get a pizza, and it's quicker, and that is really true. And it's everywhere you go into a pub these days and you're offered a patsy before you're offered a pint. And for some of our more vintage audience, a patsy is a Patsy Cline, a line. We love our rhyming slang up here. But... And I always wondered why, and I think I just accepted it as well. And I went into the prison system, drugs were rife, especially when I went into Berlin, and the first time I seen it in there, it was like, as Sean says, the high 90 to 95%. I was in the small, minute percent that didn't use drugs in jail. And you kind of feel as if you get more in common with the staff than you do the prisoners, because people are on the chase, go to exercise yard, who's got this, who's got that. I even noticed the last sentence, there's people picking up bits of paper. So basically spice is sprayed onto paper, and they smoke paper. You walk about and it smells of burnt paper. And they'll be like ripped up bits of paper on the ground, people picking it up, inspecting it and that type of thing. It just, you kind of saw firsthand how desperate some people were. And I always wondered, what is it contributes to this? And in a sense, in essence, what James is saying, for me, recovery, it was an education. And, oh, right, that makes sense. This is why I can't stop and why I can't stay stopped. And for me, I got into documentary making, and I just found a real love for it. Been able to tell a story as such, and I kind of wanted to shine a light in Scotland, especially. That's why Glasgow has so many drone shots as well. So I kind of want to highlight our city, our country, because I feel it's shoved in a corner. But it feels like kind of like the rest of the QK or media as such. And of course, I'd say a lot of people are aware of the drug problem in Scotland, but why? They don't know why there's a problem. They know there's a problem, but why? And I kind of wanted to unearth that, and was Sean, I'd kind of drafted an idea for a script away a year, 2 years ago, and I never really acted. I just ended up gathering dust. And then Sean proposed, like, we should do a documentary together. And I was like, you know what, there's one I think we could do, because Sean works in addiction services, and I thought, right, this would be perfect. And we had a discussion, and we looked at, right, what kind of break down addiction for people to understand the factors that lead into it, and essentially humanise addicts, because I'll not name them, but you've got your kind of mainstream like media outlets as such, and like the media and the type of thing that's, they try and make it a political spin. There's always an agenda behind it, or they feel as if a lot of these people that are on the outside looking in, it's almost like a safari, whereas these are our communities, these are our people, these are us, it's me especially, so we're in the inside speaking out, essentially, so we've no got any agenda, we're just trying to say it how it is, and that's why, as well, we included Davis, as you've seen, smoking crack, because we wanted to show it. We only want to kind of show it and glamorise or sincere. There's nothing glamorous about that. You're not watching that and thinking, oh, I want to try that. You're watching that and you're seeing a destroyed human. Know what I mean? I got a destroyed childhood, and I think the amount of people are watching that as well. And I think as well, for the general public, because I feel that these are the people we want to educate, because these are the real policy shifters, people that don't really have much experience of addiction, have maybe got an uncle or a cousin or something that's maybe in an active addiction. They're probably ostracised for the family. I've had that first-hand experience of having family members ostracised as such because of their behaviour that they're carrying out through addiction. In order to understand it, right, and you see it and you're like, almost like kind of lifts the veil, and that's what we try to do, kind of humanise people.
You've really done that. You've really done that. I've just remembered the first time I watched it, and I had it the same again tonight. I thought, I wish it had closed with, this is what it costs to keep a person in jail for a year, which is it 70 grand or something?
Near 50s now,
Is it? Oh, is all right. So it's about 50 grand, and rehab costs £1,000 a week, 52 grand. So that, and if 90% of the people are in jail are there because of addiction or addiction related. Just like, and we don't have any recovery wings in our jails, but we do in England. It just seems like it's a captive audience for rehab. Would that be possible? I mean, they do it in England. Why don't we do it in Scotland?
They do it in America. There isn't a will. I think a part of it no having a will is because it's like you said, like you were saying at the start about. Everybody's got compassion for the abandoned dog. So they'll go to the poor dogs and they'll put a tenner a month into the dog charity. But if you really understand what underpins addiction, the trauma people went through, and you follow the evidence, it's not just our opinion on it. If you follow the evidence about what people who have experienced addiction, who are navigating our justice system, the pain they've went through, and they really understood it, then it would move you to compassion, because human beings are by nature, I believe, compassionate at their core. It's the fundamental characteristic of being a human being. Somebody falls in the flare, they'll take a heart attack. Everybody in the room will try and help that person out their suffering. You want to sit there and say, right, let's analyse this and study the research, and you'll take action. And I think a big part of why we don't take action as a society for drug addictions, because we think they choose it. So it's easy to say, you're choosing that, you're a junkie, you're of no use, get him away out of here, ostracise him.
And the addiction industry promulgates that, it says, so the addiction treatment industry keeps telling people that they're making choices as well, they're making bad choices.
Aye, and then they make it about choice of treatment. And I never had a choice. If I had a choice, there was no way I would have burnt my life to the ground the way I did. There was no way I would have landed in a rehab baffled. Why am I here? I just want to be a better dad. That was my mantra. Just want to be a good dad to my Wayne. She doesn't deserve this. And unknown to me, a big part of what even drove that decision making was about what was missing in my childhood, and I didn't want my own Wayne to experience that. So if you're thinking addiction's a choice, then you're way off the reality of being, nobody chooses addiction. And if any of you've got a loved one who's navigating it, you have seen the despair in them. You've probably tried to reason with them. And if I would challenge anybody in here to watch the film. There's a film called, was it the Bill W. film?
Of Days of Wine and Roses?
No, Bill W. it's called. It's about the formulation of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the guy that's playing the role in it stands at a window. It's so profound. He stands at the window and describes everything that alcohol addicts. It's Bill Wilson. It describes everything that alcohol addiction's doing to him. It's taking his family, his health, and at the end of it he goes, and see, despite all that, what I want the most is another drink. And you realise how powerful it is, that it's stronger than love. And that's why people need rehabilitation. They need proper medical care. The medical industry needs to be involved in it. You need good doctors. You need good detox. I mean, I spent 5.5 months in Castlecraig Hospital. And when you drive into it, it says you're now entering Castlecraig Hospital. So right away, I'm told I'm in a hospital because I'm not well. And a therapist in there says to me, "You're not a bad boy, son. You're not a bad boy, it needs to get good. You're just a young boy that's became unwell and you need to get well again." And all my life I had social workers, family members, prison officers, police officers telling me I was bad. Justice system, finger wagging, baffled. And I was able to escape it and get out it because they understood the problem. And Castlecraig, and the reason I'm emphasising Castlecraig is because Castlecraig is probably the best rehab in Scotland. In fact, it's not probably, it is. It's one of the best in the world. Guess who funds it? Guess how Castlecraig is sustained? Guess how it still exists? The Dutch government sustain Castlecraig Hospital. The Dutch government.
They send people.
They send their Dutch
over 100
clients
people
who
a
can't get better in their system over there, over to this hospital to get better. The Scottish government get pennies. And 20 years ago, I went in there, 20 years, and we are meant to be a progressive country that follows the evidence base. So we should be maximising that type of treatment, no defunding it. So there's something fundamentally flawed with the power brokers in this country that a wee guy growing up in an impoverished area who couldn't get, I never had them two razzoos to rub together at that time, that if I was navigating the same treatment system today, looking for an out for my addiction, I wouldn't make it. So we...
If you were in Glasgow, you would have a 1 in 6,500 chance of getting a place.
So there you go. So I realise how fortunate I am. And I came here the night with a heavy heart. One of the lassies I sponsor's in a coma. And she's in the ICU and the Queen Mother now. She's got a wee boy who's about 3-year-old. And if she doesn't make it out of the coma and overcome her addiction, that wee boy will probably go into the care system because his dad's in addiction and all. So I don't just see the person in front of me I'm trying to help. I see the veins. I see past them into their family. I see the despairing mother, the brother who's that angry with them, he can't even look at them because he doesn't understand why they do it. So thank God for people in recovery and the medical professionals I met in Castlecraig Hospital who understood this illness, because I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Some of them were both, weren't they? Some of the doctors and nurses were also people in recovery.
That baffled me. Because I've got the message it's a choice and it's only people that I know end up in addiction. And I'm telling this doctor about how terrible my detox is. You don't know what it's like to go through what I'm going through. And the doctor says, aye a day. Aye a day, I'm in recovery, James. And I went, what, you? And he said, aye, he says, but the drugs I were getting were better than yours. I was writing my own prescriptions. That's what he said to me. And there goes the argument, innit? I didn't even want to argue with him. I was doing this there telling people, here. He's an addict, did you know that? So I didn't know that high functioning professionals could be blighted with this illness as well. And he's well known in Scotland, that doctor. But I won't disclose who he is. Anonymity and all that.
Aye, so that's us running pretty much just past 10 o'clock, so we don't want to keep people all night, but if there's anybody that's really got a burning desire, so to speak, if you get anything you want to ask, feel free, the floor is yours. Paul, you can just take the mic, please.
I mean, I don't think there's any answers I can think of to the scale of the problem, but the one thing I notice with people in recovery who are my friends and living in Govan like you, Jordan, is that Scotland is absolutely world class at shame. And it's absolutely, it stuns me that addiction is stigmatised and normalised at the same time. And recovery is also stigmatised. And I mean, how in that climate and that culture can anybody get well? And the other thing that, you know, looking at Barlinnie as a prison system and also looking at central government that you and I know quite well, Jordan, the vicarious trauma. I didn't know what vicarious trauma was until I lived in central Govan. And then I saw it happening with people who were traumatising everybody else like a set of dominoes gone off around them. And then you're trapped by that culture of trauma and you cannot escape it. So it's totally logical to me that people stay in communities of addiction because they've got no way of escaping that gravitational pull that vicarious trauma and intergenerational trauma create. And then you've got, you know, whether it's Barlinnie or whether it's a dumping ground where, you know, people end up in places like Central. I was doing a concert. I actually promoted a concert in Barlinnie. And I talked to one of the prison guards about, and he was talking about the recovery work they were doing in Barlinnie. I was saying, yeah, but as soon as they're out, they're back in Central Govan. And they're in that ecosystem which gave them the problem in the first place. And he kind of looked at me in shock because he didn't realise that it was cyclic. That's all I got to say. Well done, everyone.
The good news is that recovery is also contagious, though. So the research says that if one person gets well in the family, that will have a massive effect and a ripple effect in the whole community. So that's why we should be investing in recovery. And I think there's a great anecdote about soil and plants. And, you know, if you plant... What is that again, James? You tell it much better than me. Yeah, like if you're planting something.
Aye, so if there was a plant in the corner that wasn't fulfilling its potential, you wouldn't look at it and go, you're making bad choices, you cunt. It would just be absurd, wouldn't it? But the compassionate response would be, what conditions are lacking in its life that enable it to fulfil its potential? Somebody would shout out, put it out of the window, apparently if it's getting sunlight, that helps it grow better. Somebody would say, apparently if you talk nice to a plant, it grows better. Somebody would say, water it. They need water as well. So you create the conditions for its potential. And what is that other than a change of environment? Because the neuroscience has shown us that the human brain develops in response to the environment. And you're right that you can leave that environment, have a sense of hope, a victory of your circumstances, go back into your old environment and encounter your trauma again. Get into an environment where you're triggered with the past. But here's the magic that's in it. And it took me a long time to realise this, that when I walked into a room of people in recovery, I had changed my environment and I didn't even know that I'd done that. So what I was exposed to was a social contagion. I was exposed to lasses like Dee who were saying, this is how good my life today is, or Annemarie, or just people in recovery telling me about the life, the things they were doing. And I was able, that facilitates hope. And for that period I felt safe, because you need to feel safe. The fundamental core principle of trauma-informed practice is safety. But before safety there needs to be connection. So I think even the safety bit needs to have connection before it, because I don't feel safe here unless I can connect with you on some level. So if I'm sitting with a human being there telling me a wee bit about them, what they've been through, then I start to connect, which is like a medicine on its own. And if you think about it through that analogy of the plant, then every single person in this room could create environments that are contagious to recovery. But one of the big things that my frustration, and Annemarie can speak to the evidence on it, is because of the chemicals that are out there in the culture now, people need medically detoxed. To come into the rooms of recovery, some people are on 160 ml of meth, and what's happening is they're looking at boys like me in long-term recovery and they're going like, he's no different for me, I could do what he's doing, but he can't break the back of the chemical dependence, because the system he's in will say, he'll go to them and they'll say, we'll bring you down 5 mil you're not ready to come down, and they'll kind of encourage him to steer away from it as if he's making a bad decision. And the amount of times I've seen people come back to me and say, my worker put me up 5 mil when he went in to go down. I'm like, and this is why a lot of us are saying, get the care plan out, hold them accountable to the care plan. And that's the thing that frustrates me today, is because the system doesn't support the bridge to us. Whereas we've not got an issue with it. We're all for harm. I'm for harm reduction. Harm reduction system is needed. But it needs to work with the recovery community to get better at bridging the gap between there to there and understanding what it really takes to recover for this illness.
That wasn't the plant analogy I was thinking of. I'm going to tell sorry. I'm going to tell it badly, but that was a good one as well. So what you're suggesting is if somebody gets rehab, it's like, and then you put them back in Govan, right? Then you're back in the environment. So you think about that like a plant. So you take the plant's dying, it's in bad soil, and you take it out and you put it in rehab, and that's the better soil, it's the more nutrient-based soil, and then you take it back out and you plant it back in the bad soil in Govan, right? And don't hate me if you're for Govan. But actually, the bridge that James just finished talking about there, the bridge is what you have to do during that process then is make sure that when you're putting that person back to Govan, first of all, that they're willing to go there, but that they're connected. The bridge to the recovery community is already established. So before they leave the rehab, they have to have the connections back at home with the local recovery community. And we're all there. We're in every community in Scotland, just about, maybe up in the Hebrides, there's not too many. But there's the recovery community is Scotland's best asset. In fact, Keith Humphreys, Stanford University professor, describes the anonymous fellowships as the best thing in public health to a free lunch. It doesn't cost the public party anything. And it's James will tell you, the rooms are full of psychologists, counsellors, like professionals, trauma-informed professionals, people who have recovered, but they also have the professional qualifications to help people heal as well. So, and there's a programme there that does that as well. So aye.
No, thanks, Annemarie. So, has anybody else got like a question? Is everybody kind of happy with that? Like, to obviously don't want to keep everybody here to pure 11 o'clock midnight and that. But, aye, Mark. Right, last question then.
Do you not think that every school, every high school should have a psychologist and a psychiatrist located in the school to try and nip things in the bud before they go any further?
James or Annemarie's better to answer that again. Like, I'm happy about there.
Like every high school, senior school should have a resident psychologist and a psychiatrist in each school.
No, a psychiatrist.
Well, definitely a psychologist.
These schools have got a school psychologist. They've got access to them anyway. But I wouldn't.
I work with young people as well, and I think, like Sean, we can talk about this after. I'd love my young folk to see the film. They're not in school; they left school a long time ago. But also, if I show them that, and then they come back to me and James, they're that young boy who now knows that he's got that displaced, and then they say, so what do I do now? Who do I go to now, Fern? And the GP doesn't have that understanding. It's not their responsibility to fix the things that they had no control over. It's the services and the adults. So by all means, put it in schools, definitely, because it will help some young people. But it's the services that need to be seeing this. It's the systems, it's the workers, it's the folk in power, whatever flavour they are.
Totally right. I get asked all the time for years, if you could go back and speak to yourself as a wee boy, what would you say to yourself? And when I was new to my journey, I'd say things like, oh, it's not your fault, and you didn't know any better. And then it just dawned on me one day, I realised, actually, I shouldn't need to go back into my childhood and give James a Tony Robinson motivational talk. Like, I was just being a child. So my response was normal to abnormal circumstances. Now, I never set the conditions for my rearing. That's the adults, that's all us. So it wasn't me I should have been going back and talking to. And I flipped it back. It was teachers that asked me that. I flipped it back to the teachers and says, it's actually all the adults I should have been going back and speaking to and saying, do you know anything about child development and toxic stress and adverse childhood experiences and attachment issues? Do you know anything about that stuff? Because I'm a wee guy floundering here. I've took recently to speaking about peer orientation. How does peer orientation happen? So it's when kids transfer all the attachment into the peer group when the peer group isn't mature enough to lead them. So if we understand that in our culture then there's a rise in peer orientation, so you'll see big headlines like youth violence is on the rise. Let's take that away, that's a symptom. Peer orientation's on the rise. My children come home from school, we court it unwittingly. My Wayne comes home from school, what's the first thing she picks up? Her mobile phone. Who's she connecting back to? The Wayne she's just spent the whole day with. It's my responsibility as a parent, because I understand peer orientation, that my function is not to court it. Because it might be an easy life for me. She's on her phone, she can get her there and I'll be able to do what I want to do. But she's navigating immature young people again. And children are socialised by being around about adults. It's a myth. There's nothing in attachment science to say that children are socialised by being with other children. During the pandemic, parents were saying, my Waynes have no pals. They're not going to be able to be socialised. I was like, what? I was all chuffed because I knew my wee lassie was spending more time with adults every day and she got more adult-led activity. And we need to get better at that as adults, is understanding that we need to create more conditions for adult-led activity. That means that they'll mature better and quicker. Because peer-orientated Waynes, if you've noticed this, see when they've got a social or emotional problem, they don't go to the adults, they go to each other. Look at gang violence, for example. One of the wee guys gets intimidated, they don't go to their mum and dad and say, what's a healthy resolution to this? They go to their pal and they say, aye, I've got a big dagger here, Mum. And then it becomes an immature solution to conflict and it keeps it cyclical. And a lot of parents don't understand it, so it's done unwittingly. They don't challenge it because, the reason they don't challenge it because they were peer orientating themselves. I was in a gang, as if it's a rite of passage into adulthood. And you hear them all the time saying things like, he doesn't listen to me. He listens to me. He cares more about what his pals think of him than I do. That's peer orientation. But there's hope because it's a function of attachment. You can claim them back. You can work it back out. But when I take my wee lassie's phone off her, nature compels her to attach to who's about. That's what attachment does. It's its job. And before I know it, we're doing a jigsaw, or she's painting my face. There's just some, that's a documentary, peer orientation. Because we can offset it and stop courting it, so the adults can get to see their role and how we allow children to be socialised with other children. It's a disaster, isn't it?
So you'll be in that one, Phil.
We're just going to finish it up and let people go up the road. If anybody's
Thanks,
got
guys.
kind of closing remarks, just like kind of brief ones, if you're all talked to that.
No,
story.
just thank you. Thank you.